Now, Full Gear is live this Saturday from the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. At last year's show, Hangman Adam Page won the AEW World title, ending Kenny Omega's nearly year-long reign as champion. CM Punk got a win over Eddie Kingston. Cody Rhodes and Pac teamed up to beat Malachi Black and Andrade El Idolo, while MJF and Darby Allin had one of the best pay-per-view openers in AEW history. MJF goes from curtain jerker last year to headliner this year. But the build for this year's show has not been great. And I think a lot of that has to do with what happened at Brawl Out. You know, what should have been weeks worth of promos and build to the final confrontation between CM Punk and MJF was ruined. You know, what should have been weeks worth of trios matches with the Elite building to a big match on this show for the trios championship, that was taken away. Thunder Rosa got hurt, so they went back to this interim title nonsense. The House of Black disappeared. Adam Cole still hasn't been back. Ricky Starks is back now, but he disappeared after his Grand Slam win. Wardlow's the TNT champion, and he's been a complete non-factor, a complete afterthought on these shows. So some of these wounds were out of Tony Khan's control, but a lot of these wounds were self-inflicted. And it has made for a very lackluster build overall to one of their biggest shows of the year. Now, as of this morning, the Elite have not been announced for a match. I expect that's going to change on Wednesday. I think it'll be Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks making their return at Full Gear to challenge Death Triangle for the Trios titles. Death Triangle, they just had a Trios title match announced for Wednesday. So I could see a situation where they win the match, and then after the match, we get the announcement that the Elite are back, and the Elite are going to challenge them for the Trios titles. And they will win back the Trios titles for a second time. And I think Tony Khan will pick up with them. Whatever his plans were for them back in September, he'll just pick up where he left off. Another match not yet made official, but it looks like it probably will be, is Wardlow defending the TNT Championship against Powerhouse Hobbs and Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe turned heel on Wardlow on Wednesday night. Wardlow made a comment to Hobbs when he was in the ring saying, you know, not only are you not going to get my TNT title, I'm going to win every championship in this company. And Joe was standing there with his Ring of Honor television title, and he looked perturbed by that comment, and he attacked him from behind. He choked him out. I call it a heel turn, but I would say he got 85% cheers for doing so, because people love Samoa Joe. But Wardlow's TNT title run, and I think the reaction, I know people like Joe, but still, if Wardlow was that over, people would not have been cheering Joe, you know, beating the hell out of him. Wardlow's TNT title run has been hugely disappointing. I don't know how you could drop the ball on this. As hot as this guy was a few months ago, but Tony Khan has done just that. But this match only needs to be for the TNT title. There is no need for Joe's Ring of Honor TV title to be on the line because it serves no purpose. Who cares about that title? Who cares? Keep the focus on the TNT Championship. And it's just a feeling I have, but I think Hobbs wins the TNT title. I think Wardlow then goes on to wrestle Joe at Final Battle. We know Wardlow and Joe are going to wrestle. I think Final Battle will be where that is. But I think Hobbs is going to win. I think Hobbs, and I think he should. I'm here for a Hobbs TNT title run. And eventually, you could build to Hobbs defending the championship against Ricky Starks. You can come back around in a few months to Hobbs and Starks and have those two guys battling it out for the TNT title. Jade Cargill defends her TBS championship and her undefeated streak against Nyla Rose, who has had possession of the physical belt now for weeks. This terrible storyline. Jade is not losing to Nyla. Jade is not losing to Nyla. When she does finally lose, it should be to Jamie Hayter, not Nyla Rose. So Jade Cargill retains. We have Sting and Darby Allin taking on the team of Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. Jarrett and Lethal lost to Ric Flair and Andrade a few months ago, and they're going to lose again here. I have no issue with them using Jarrett in a tag team match, giving him some ring time with Sting like it's TNA in 2004. But Darby needs to get his revenge for what Jarrett did to him. Sting and Darby should go over in this match. There should not be any other outcome but Sting and Darby winning this match. We have the finals of the World Title Eliminator Tournament, with the winner challenging either Jon Moxley or MJF for the title on the Winter is Coming episode of Dynamite next month. The first round saw Ethan Page beat Eddie Kingston, and Bandito beat Roosh on Rampage Friday night. Bandito has signed his AEW contract. I feel like he signed with AEW 10 times in the past 2 weeks. With all these reports of him signing, and then he didn't sign, he only agreed to terms, but then he really did sign. He's like the new Bram from TNA. Every day I wake up, I have to check to see, has Bandito signed with AEW? Yes, he has. But he beat Roosh. So it'll be Ethan Page against Bandito on Dynamite this Wednesday. Brian Cage beat Dante Martin. Ricky Starks against Lance Archer was supposed to take place on Friday, but they did a quick insert on Wednesday that showed Archer beating him up in the back. And so the match has been postponed to Dynamite this week. Whoever wins that match is going to meet Brian Cage. So it should be Starks and Cage, 2 former members of Team Taz. The final at Full Gear should be Ricky Starks against Ethan Page, with Ricky Starks going over and getting the shot at Winter is Coming. This needs to be Ricky's time to shine, and by shine I mean getting consistent time on television. We still have not seen the Ricky Starks that I saw when I first started watching him on NWA Power. You know, showing up and then disappearing for weeks at a time, that doesn't get anybody over. That gets no one over. Unless your name is Brock Lesnar. And Ricky Starks is not Brock Lesnar. He needs the time to develop on television, and I hope they can use this tournament to start doing. Whoever wins this tournament is not winning the AEW World Championship. Whether Ricky Starks wins or not. Whoever comes out of Full Gear as the champion, Moxley, MJF, they're going to be the champion. We're not crowning a new world champion based on who wins this tournament. But they can use this tournament as a way to finally kickstart the Ricky Starks push. Enough with the start and stop bullshit. You know, if he missed time recently for a personal issue that was out of Tony Khan's hands, it doesn't explain his booking for the entire fucking year. So I don't want to hear any excuses here. His booking has been atrocious. Use this tournament as a way to kickstart Ricky Starks and get him going, because you have a new star, a new potential star in him. But you have to start building him up. Saraya is back in the ring for the first time in 5 years against Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. Britt has not won a singles match since the end of August. She's won a few tags with Jamie Hayter, but no singles matches since August has Britt Baker won. And before that, you'd have to go all the way back to her winning the Owen Hart tournament in May. Now, all of that is to say, I'm sure it's very tempting to give Britt Baker a win here because she's due for one. But there should only be one outcome, and that is that Saraya wins her first match back. She talked about this being the start of her comeback story. Well, her comeback story should not begin with a loss to Britt Baker. So I think Saraya wins. We have Jungle Boy. He laid down the challenge on Rampage for a steel cage match against Luchasaurus. I still think Christian Cage is months away from being cleared, so I don't expect this to be the end of this feud. But this should be a win for Jungle Boy. The Acclaimed defend the AEW Tag Team Championship against the former champs Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland. I am digging the heel-face dynamic right now with Lee and Swerve that they have been doing. It's basically Sting and Lex Luger. The gimmick that Sting and Luger were doing when they were partners in WCW in the early days of Nitro. We all know where that's headed ultimately, and it's not back to the tag team titles. The Acclaimed will retain. When you have an act as over as they are, you don't kill it off. So the Acclaimed will retain the titles. We have Toni Storm defending her interim AEW Women's Championship against Jamie Hayter. And look, I would love to see Jamie Hayter win the title, and the fans would too. I think the crowd reaction is going to be 70-30, if I had to venture a guess. 70-30 in this match in favor of Jamie Hayter. But you have to think that Britt Baker gets involved here. It ends up costing Jamie Hayter. I think Toni retains. She keeps the title long enough to do the match with Thunder Rosa. If Rosa is able to come back as she said she hopes to by January. Once Hayter splits from Baker, that paves the way for her to work with Jade and become the fan favorite to take the TBS title from Jade Cargill. Chris Jericho puts his Ring of Honor World Championship on the line in a four-way against Bryan Danielson, Sammy Guevara, and Claudio Castagnoli. Bryan and Sammy, they had a great 2 out of 3 falls match on Wednesday. You add in Jericho, you add in Claudio, this could steal the show. I don't see Jericho dropping the title yet, not if the idea is to, I thought the idea eventually was to get the belt onto Daniel Garcia. And if that's the case, that shouldn't be for a while yet, because I would think Tony Khan wants to make sure that the Ring of Honor belt is on a big name when the time comes next year for them to launch their weekly show, whether it's on television, if it's on YouTube or some streaming platform. Tony Khan has said early 2023 is when they're aiming for there to be some kind of weekly show. Jericho, Danielson, Samoa Joe, they would all make sense as Ring of Honor World Champions when that show launches. Daniel Garcia, his name doesn't mean anything yet. So it's Jericho or Danielson for the win. I'm going to go with Jericho. And again, Jericho thinks Sammy is going to do the right thing. He's going to lay down for him if push comes to shove. And it will. And Sammy is not going to lay down for him, which is going to cause drama in Jericho's crew. And Jon Moxley defends the AEW World Championship against MJF. Not the ending to the story we should have had, which is MJF winning his very first world title from the man that beat him in the dog collar match at Revolution. The man he used to look up to and idolize as a young wrestling fan. But shit happens and you need to readjust. Moxley is the heart and soul of this promotion. And outside of somebody like Jade Cargill, who is undefeated, there is nobody that has been more protected this year than Jon Moxley. And do you want to know how protected Jon Moxley has been? This is an amazing stat. I looked it up because I was curious. Outside of losing to Punk in Chicago at All Out, the only other singles loss that Jon Moxley has taken all year came at the hands of Nick Gage last month. And that was not even an AEW show. That was a GCW show. So that doesn't even count. Before the All Out loss to Punk, you would have to go all the way back to July of last year when Moxley lost the IWGP United States title to Lance Archer on Dynamite. That's how far back you would have to go to find a Jon Moxley singles loss. He lost to Punk this year. That's it. So that means it'll be a big fucking deal for MJF to pin Jon Moxley, or make him submit. He got the salt of the earth armbar, but I don't see Moxley submitting unless he passes out. It'll be a big fucking deal to see MJF pin Jon Moxley at Full Gear, and pin him he will, is my prediction. MJF is going to walk out the new AEW World Champion. He will pin him, he will beat him using brass knucks, a la William Regal. Regal told him in that promo a few weeks ago, you want to be the devil? Prove it. I don't care what you do, take liberties with people, but prove that you can be that person. And then on Dynamite Wednesday night, something very interesting happened. When Moxley was in the ring cutting his promo on MJF, he stared in Regal's eyes as he was mocking MJF, calling himself the devil. And then he looked into the camera and he said, I've looked into the devil's eyes. He said this after having just looked in the eyes of William Regal. And we could see Regal in the background of the camera shot. I just don't think that was an accident. So I am convinced that Regal is playing into the finish in some way, and MJF is walking out as the new world champion. And for the first time in the 3-year history of this company, they will have a young, homegrown star, a pillar, as the champion that they can truly build around. Chris Jericho was not that person. Jon Moxley was not that person. And Hangman Page wasn't that guy either. CM Punk wasn't that guy. You want to look at a truly young, homegrown talent in this company that they have built that had, he was in MLW and some other independent promotions, but, even Hangman Page at least, he did work in Ring of Honor in New Japan. People knew who Hangman was. He was one of the founders of the company with the rest of the elite guys. MJF is the first true young pillar of this company who really built his name from the ground up working in AEW, who is going to hold that world championship.